Welcome to eLeaderTech TV. I'm your host, Mike Hill. Today, we have David Barr with us. He's going to talk a little bit. We're going to follow up on our last episode where we talked about eLeaderTech. Now we're going to go into a lot more of the software components. So, David, first of all, welcome.
Well, thank you, Mike, for having me.
Well, I want to get right into this and talk to probably of all of the components in eLeaderTech, probably the one that's used the very, very most, which would be ETS. Would you talk about ETS? And first of all, what is ETS?
Well, ETS is executing the standards. And the idea of starting with every single associate that works within an entity, a company, a dealership, that they would have a goal card. And the goal card would be different standards that you would operate within, expectation. You know, oftentimes people that don't have a good experience at work say in exit interviews, if only you would have told me what you wanted out of me. If only you would have got with me when you felt I wasn't doing well. They want more coaching, mentoring, and encouragement from leadership. And our leaders aren't hardwired to be developers of others. So it starts with a goal card that we track different standards in voice of the customer, in processes that make us different than our competition, if executed. Certainly profit matrix. Profit's important. We can't live without it. And then what are you doing in the development of you? So those standards are developed. And then after they're developed, well, that's fine and good. But, you know, business owners have things called job descriptions that says you greet the customer, smile. And they're really full of cliches. They're not actions. In ours, what are the daily, weekly, monthly, yearly actions related to the job role the individual has? And for leaders to be able to articulate why it's there, what it's going to do for the individual in the achievement of the goal card, and that is the highest earning potential for their time spent within the company, and giving them a clear journey. What does success look like? And how do you get there? And then within executing the standards, for us to track, what's your efficiency rating? How often do you do it? And what we have learned over the last 30 years is that folks that are achieving between 61 and 79% efficiency on those actions are in the rhythm of success that over a period of time becomes the habit of success, and simply they get what they want in the score within the standard. And then at the end, every 31 days in business, what happens? Everybody will tell me, well, we're doing some accounting. Well, what's that called? A profit and loss statement. We always count our capital. Well, if capital and talent are the two components needed for high-end success, where's the talent P&L? It doesn't exist. Well, it does exist within eLeaderTech in the product executing the standards. So we take it through the goal setting. We take it through actions. We take it through walk your action. We take it through coaching and mentoring, a checkup every 31 days that's formal with a leader to an associate as a team, an adjustment, and then the execution of those commitments of the adjustment to get what you want until it becomes natural. And they become like that 3% group that controls 90% of this nation's wealth. That secret of success should be shared with everyone. Everyone has a right to know the path to get what you could and should have. And that's been a secret. But it's not a secret when you get involved with eLeaderTech.
You know, within, you mentioned the checkup.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's a time that a leader and an associate can sit down together.
Mm-hmm.
And basically review how they're doing. We've talked about, and in fact, we were talking about it in our leadership course that just ended last weekend. We talked about the different thoughts of what that checkup is going to be from the leader side and sometimes from the associate side on it. Can you go a little bit more in depth into what a checkup is? What is a successful checkup?
You know, when you use the word review, normally to an associate, they don't look at that as a positive interaction. As a matter of fact, surveys have been done, and the number one thing that a human being resists or doesn't like is a review with their so-called boss. Now, we believe that until the individual, this happens repetitively, and the individual sees that this is their coach, their mentor, that's helping them get what they could and should have, then the review becomes, hey, when are we going to have that review? Because they're going to learn to self-score. So they're going to walk in. It's going to be great. I can't wait to talk to you because I'm an 8.6. And they know exactly how an 8.6 in a scoring system from 0 to 10, and we want everyone to live a level 7 life. And when they're at 8.6, that's really special. But helping the person understand how they achieved an 8.6 so they can achieve it again and again and again, that's what a mentor does. And they look forward to it. They look forward to it. But at first, no, they won't. Because the only time that leadership talks with associates or team members, or what they call employees, is when something's wrong. Well, you know what? That's not good for anybody, because it doesn't create what has to happen in order to have high-end success, and that's something called harmony.
You know, with those checkups, that's 12 times a year.
Yeah.
That a leader and an associate are going to sit down together. How often do you think that's happening when you don't have ATS?
Well, Gallup shows in a study that it happens 25% of leaders actually discuss achievement or the evaluation of matrix with an associate, only 1 out of 4. So 75% of all people that are holding a job role are drifting with no assistance from leadership. And then of the 25% that are receiving discussions about performance, only 55% of them like it, because it's not a discussion, it is a beat-up session. Well, somebody knows when they didn't achieve what they wanted. They can tell by their paycheck. They don't need somebody rubbing it in their face. They need somebody pointing out, how do you make it different? How do you make it improve? And to look at the leader and say, that's my coach. And at the end of the day, when asked, hey, who is it in your life that made a difference for you? If they don't mention the leader's name, well, then the leader's failed.
You know, the ETS 1, it's simple. It's very, very easy to use. But the actual, all the things that ETS does, not just for work-related, but even for personal.
Yeah.
Personal things, you can keep track of those things, keep track of those actions, and learning all the things that you can do outside of work. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I would. I want to add something first, though.
Okay.
You know, when you look at what executing the standards has accomplished and what we have accomplished at eLeaderTech in the development of every job role within a new car franchise, from a lot technician to a general manager and everything in between, and every action that should be done daily, weekly, and monthly, as a new automobile dealer principal, what would you pay to have that put in a format that you could easily understand exactly what each job role would do? I once asked an automobile dealer, and he says if I could find something like that, it would be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars of knowledge. Well, it is. And we've developed it over 20, 30 years. But we just don't charge you that couple of $100,000 for the knowledge. Now, in coaching and solving problems, when we have an obstacle or what appears to be a defeat, it's not failure until it's accepted as such. teaching ourselves to hunt for the seed of its equivalent benefit. What can I learn out of this? What happened? And what corrections could I make? And then execute. It teaches that I'm in charge of overcoming anything I wish. It's a simple formula. So don't freeze up and accept a defeat or disappointment as failure. Adjust and move on. Now, that can be used in anything in your life, in your relationships, in your family matters, in family, faith, community, health, anything that you do. It works. And one of the greatest joys that I have is when somebody comes back to me and says, hey, can I talk to you? I said, sure, I want to share with you something that happened. And they use what they learned in executing the standards, the cycle of success, in one of the other roles within their life, family, faith, community, or health, and then achieve what they want. Now, that is giving somebody the gift of being in charge of their own thought, using the mind model as the engine, and several other of the principles, extra mile, personal commitment, self-discipline, controlled attention, controlled enthusiasm, accurate thought for the achievement of creativity before an action is put into motion. And that's kind of like the gearbox that drives the mind model, and the fuel that it uses is a positive state. Once you're in that zone, there is nothing you can't achieve, nothing. Well, that's what we teach.
I'm going to move to another area now.
Sure.
Okay, as far as software goes, and then I want to get into some of our competencies that we're talking. But let's stay with the software side of it. Let's talk about the Express menu. Absolutely a fabulous tool. It's taken years of development. I know a ton of investment on your part.
Yes, that's true.
Let's talk about Express menu and how important that is today.
As we look at providing financial products, warranties, and things to protect somebody in the investment of a new vehicle is expensive. And most people don't have a whole lot of reserve, so they know they need protection. They just want to know that where's the benefit. So how is it that you communicate that with them quickly? And it occurred to me early on that as we look at fast food establishments, it used to be you would sell an entree, and then you would sell a dessert or some French fries, a salad, and then some soft drinks, and it goes, and do you want this, and do you want this, and do you want this? And then somebody came up with the idea of combinations. Do you want that, or that? And as Wendy's came along, they did it in a very special way. They only had 4, and it made it easy. It was a good experience, and they were able to produce more. So we kind of put our products into bundles so that we could express them. But more importantly, we understand that each individual receives information in a different way. And there's basically 4 different temperament traits that human beings possess: a direct, an extroversion, a paced, patient personality, or a structured personality. So we developed a software that we have a company partnered with us, MBS, Management by Strengths. And at a push of a button, when we identify the temperament that you're in, and we train our presenters to know this within about 60 seconds, 3 minutes, no more than, they can push a button and all the numbers and the cell's aids will change to that temperament. And we can go back and forth in a minute. And what it has caused is an easy exchange of information between 2 human beings that makes it a comfortable conversation. And the results have just been phenomenal.
Well, you take a look at the Express menu, and first of all, the ease in which it can be used. And it takes, obviously, you developed the paper menu back in 1992. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And in that paper menu, it was different from any other paper menus there because you themed that dealership, and you talked about a theme. Can you expand on that just a little bit?
Well, in everything that we do is it ought to start just like you started the first podcast we were in. You started with the purpose statement. Well, when somebody's introduced to a product, they ought to be talking about the entity in which they're sitting at and what it is that we do differently. So take a moment to introduce yourself like you would in any relationship exchange. What can they expect in the way of after the sale services? And then once you talk about that, then you drift into the products that are available, and they're a bundle. They're these 5, and this one is this. The second is you get 4 with the 4, you forfeit 1, you forfeit 2, you forfeit 3. What would you like? And it's just as simple as that, but done in the temperament of the individual in the exchange of the benefit. Make it easy for somebody to understand. You're not selling anybody anything like you would in a traditional car store. You're simply sharing information, and people can make their own decisions, and they know what they need. Get it out there so they can make an educated decision. And what we have found is that the folks that use this with us, they simply sell more product and have happier customers.
Absolutely. And those that understand and use that express menu, I've talked to many F&I managers, and they'll hear people still using the paper version, and they're just looking at them kind of cross-eyed. How could you do it?
Well, that's because they type like this, and
that's why I type.
And well, and there's it's some of it's a generational thing, and that's why, Mike, we have 2 deliverables. If the individual is of a generation that it's all about paper and it's going to make them uncomfortable to receive it in an electronic form, well, then make it easy for the presenter. They can do it a way in which they're used to, but in a new presentation. The modern presentation can be achieved in paper, not quite as good as electronic, but most folks that are under 40, they wouldn't think of doing anything that wasn't electronic or mobile first. So that's just the change of our life experiences are very technical. Technology is a very big part of our exchange, and so we've developed it into a way that we can still have the human contact exchange and the conversation, but have software that assists without replacing the human being. It is in partnership, in concert with the human being, to get information transferred in a conversational way quickly.
And I'm going to finish up with the express menu. When a guest and the F&I business manager can walk into the office, and the first thing the guest sees is this screen with a welcome,
Sure.
which is going to be the start of the presentation. It just starts things out right.
Well, it's customized for you. It's customized based on your needs. It's not a one thing for everybody. It's based on your personal needs that has been collected by a client advisor, professional, a product presenter, to make sure that it presents what the customer needs and wants, not maybe what a traditional automobile dealership might want to push and sell.
Well, with eLeaderTech, obviously we've talked about ETS. Okay, we've talked about the express menu. Now we can get more back into the sales side. Let's talk about Terms Discovery, the new Terms Discovery software.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting is that we are looking at a change in the automotive industry. One of the things that has come out that folks really dislike is this thing called negotiation. A young person, a man or woman comes and shows you a product, and then they go behind the veil to get these numbers as if it's some kind of magical thing, and they go back and forth. Well, who is the Wizard of Oz behind the veil? And really, our Terms Discovery software goes with the idea is that you can present numbers or the ways that the manufacturer has incentivized the purchase or lease of one of their products, and they have several offerings that you can educate quickly on this Terms Discovery software, and get to the agreeable terms quickly so you can then pivot into the express menu of finance and insurance products and have it not back and forth and be quicker. Now, can somebody use the presentation or terms of discovery process in a traditional fashion? Yes, they can. But I think that most people will gravitate to the individual coming and presenting the numbers right in front of the potential buyer, and there doesn't need to be this back and forth. And the decision makers are sitting right in front of each other, and it can be a very conversational, pleasant experience. It does not have to be a bad one, and we're experiencing that more and more new car automobile franchises are wanting to move to a modern-day dealership. And it used to be that we could talk to her blue in the face. We could only find a handful of folks that wanted to run their new car automobile dealership like a fine dining experience. But now we're finding about 1 out of 4 are seeking us out. So again, we're a company that zeroes in on what tomorrow's experience is going to look like, and then implement it in a journey of now. It's not going to be all the way until you have certain competencies earned, but you can go a lot of different combinations to fit your theme and your style and to provide what your guest wants until they become a customer. And then more importantly, you make them a client. They come back or send you people to do business with you. And it's just fun. It's just fun.
Well, that's going to bring us right into competencies. But before we get into competencies, and I want to talk about one other area of software, and that's rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Rotation software, how important that is and how successful that is.
Well, you know, Mike, in a traditional automobile dealership, you have 10 people on the showroom floor at a time waiting for one guest. Well, if one guest has to come in and they see the eyes of 10 people approaching them, it's not a good welcoming feeling. And the fact of the matter is, having 10 individuals waiting for the same guest, it's not a proper utilization of time. We know that a guest services are going to break down into 4 components. They're going to normally contact you on the internet, 86% of them, if not more, and you need to be in your virtual dealership ready to greet them and start the exchange either through an email, text messaging, or a video conferencing, however. And then it moves to needs analysis, more specific questions, and then it moves to the guest visit. And when they come in, they should come in and start right where they left off in the other 2 competencies. And then the 4th competency is the marketing done by the individual on a sold group of customers, or a database marketing of who out there may need a product that we have, and doing some outgoing calls. But in order to achieve those 4 competencies, you have to be executing them. So you have to be in a rotation of, I'm doing this competency, then this competency, then this competency. I'm putting actions into motion from each one of those competencies so that I create my own visits, my own appointments, so that I'm in control of what I want in both income and units sold. Now, when we do it that way, then a person's busy 80% of the time instead of idle 80% of the time. And it's just a better work experience, because when you have actions that you're doing, you stay positive. When you have idle time and you're sitting waiting for that guest and it's not your turn, well, then you're going to have some stinking thinking enter your head. But most importantly, in a rotation system, when you're up on deck to be the host, the greeter, the maitre d', you're the only one that's going to greet that guest. It feels better for the guest. It feels better for the associate. And meanwhile, others can be doing actions that create visitation to sell more vehicles. Someone who wouldn't use a rotation system, wow, I frankly wouldn't understand. It doesn't compute to me. I want to have everybody putting actions into motion to create visits, to create our ability to serve and earn, and then the delivery of more automobiles than our market share would require us to do. We simply do more and have more fun.
Well, and you talk about having more fun. I think you do have that situation. I want to expand it just a little bit out. You talked about the majority of salespeople, client advisors, are only busy 20% of the day in the active pursuit of selling a car, 80% idle time. Well, they're leaving work at the end of the day going, oh, finally it's over,
Yeah.
as opposed to rotation where they were busy doing things, and really when they leave.
Mike, consider this. Consider this. If you're busy, and we've been able to validate this over and over again, 20% of your time is actively involved in an action to get somebody to visit the dealership so that you can serve them or the sale of a car, and 80% is idle. Now, if you could flip that around and have 80% active and only 20% idle, in the other scenario, only 20% was active, could you get a 400% improvement in productivity? Could you get 4 times the sales that you did in the other scenario? And the answer is yes, you can.
Well, when we first introduced rotation from eLeaderTech, it was a board. Yeah. It was a board that someone would manually move the things into position. Right. And that was great as long as you could see the board.
Right.
Talked about the software now.
Well, it's just like in anything in the software, it's got to be mobile first. So as long as somebody has a smartphone, they're connected to the rotation. They know exactly what competency they're working in at the time. And there is a leadership board for leaders to know where are all of our associates in the rotation through the competencies to create visitation. The fact of the matter is no longer does the host position the best position. Because when you're the host, most people are going to be coming in for an appointment, so you're just going to be a greeter. You want to be in the receiving of the first greet, which is in the receiving of an internet inquiry. That's where the handshake is. And if you start there, now you're starting with the biggest volume that you can serve to the point of answering questions as far as product and inventories, and get a guest visit that the guest is just coming at that point to validate the car, touch the car, and take delivery.
And with rotation, as I mentioned, that's going to give the client advisor, he knows exactly what he's doing in his time.
Or she.
Thank you. But there's also a report section, which is absolutely huge for not just the associate that he can see, or she, what they're doing throughout the day, but also the leader can take a look at.
You talk about having a time management tool, time blocking tool. If you see no time spent in the business development competency, then you probably don't have of the proper staffing guide, or there is an issue with the competency of execution.
And with that, it shows us exactly where we are and where we need to improve. Let's go into, and I've mentioned a couple of times now, and you talked about it in rotation. Let's talk about the actual training. We have competencies. We have training that we actually go out to the dealerships in the 4 competencies, basically 4 plus 5 because of the service drive. The first competency being the internet.
Right. Well, like we've talked about, and we probably beat it in the ground already, but we can do it again. The first competency is the internet. The second competency is when the guest wants to have a conversation either on the phone or a text or a video. And the third competency is the guest visit. The fourth competency is the marketing piece, the BDC, and how that works. And then the fifth is how it is that we stay engaged with them while they're a service customer, because they're going to come back every 6 months for an oil change. And in our system, we believe that the client advisor on the variable operation sales side should be the one making the appointment, greeting them to keep the relationship intact and strong, so that when it comes time to trading automobiles, it's just automatically going to be with you. And it makes it more of a group experience in the dealership itself.
So with eLeaderTech TV or eLeaderTech, we've seen that we're going to cover just about every area
Yeah.
of the automobile dealership. So in closing, any last thoughts about eLeaderTech? And
Well, we've talked about two things today. We talked about performance training, and we talked about software. And there's much more in eLeaderTech, from assisting dealers in building dealerships, finding locations, our brokering piece, the leadership training, the Think and Grow Rich seminars. So we talked about a component of it. There's certainly much more. But I certainly have enjoyed talking about the two components we talked about today. Thank you, Mike.
well, thank you, David. And that will close our episode today.
Thank you.
Thank you.